Welcome to The Strategic Edge, the podcast for entrepreneurs and business owners who want a competitive edge in the market. They want to be seen as the expert in their industry, and they're looking for cutting edge and innovative strategies that work across industries to help them scale their business like a boss. My name is Carden, and I'm your host. Welcome to the show. Hey everyone, I'm so excited about my guest today on the Strategic Edge podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Carden, and today I have an expert coach, Jeff Schuster, with me. Jeff, welcome to my show.
Well, thanks for having me, Ann.
I'm excited. We actually had to cancel this a couple of times because I had no voice for 2 weeks, right?
And now it's halfway back.
Yes, it's part of the way back, but that's okay. We are going to muddle through. I'm going to let you do most of the talking anyway. So it's all good. So Jeff actually is a coach, and he works primarily with CEOs of energy service companies. So I don't know, Jeff, would you call yourself a business coach, a life coach? How would you, because you kind of do both, a little bit of both. So what do you call yourself?
Yeah, I do both. So I am a certified life coach, but most of my experience is in business. Okay. And I pretty much only coach business owners. So I'm not coaching relationships and a lot of the other stuff that are out of the business setting. So it's some people call me a therapist, which I am not. Just
sometimes we feel like that in coaching. Yes, I get it.
Right.
I love it. So you have 34 years experience in the energy field, right?
Right.
Is that correct? Okay. And that's kind of how you fell into that niche with coaching.
Yeah. So I started off as an energy manager for an Air Force base. And then I actually made the transition into sales, from engineering into sales, and sold for Honeywell for a short time until electric utilities wanted to deregulate. And then they started hiring consultants. And then I went off and helped a lot of utility companies until I started my own energy services company. So I've been in, so when you say energy, it's really what's called the supply or the demand side, which is energy efficiency, energy conservation, all of the stuff to reduce energy consumption in buildings. Okay.
So is that primarily what you coach on then when you're going in to work with the CEO? Tell us what some of your kind of what you're doing with them.
Yeah. So I owned an energy services company, my own company, for 16 years. I grew it and then I sold it. And during that time, I learned a lot of things the hard way, as a lot of small business owners do. Yeah.
Right.
And I learned that, as a business owner, probably any business owner, even outside of the energy services space, deals with the stressors of being an employer, managing salespeople, engineers, construction managers, very diverse group of people. But in the energy services world, you also have a lot of government to deal with. So whether it's regulations or grants or special programs or public funding and public finance, you really get a lot of that. And what happens over time, and you don't really realize this, is it starts to build up a lot of stress. I know for me personally, it ended up causing burnout. And that's what I'm trying to prevent in a lot of my clients, because I know they're dealing with a lot of those stressors. They don't usually acknowledge it until it's too late.
Oh, gosh. I have a client that actually works with attorneys and corporate CEOs around the same thing, because she experienced that. It's really interesting because she worked for Chevron for 30 years as a corporate attorney. And so now she is life coaching and doing all of that. But it must be a really common thing in the energy space, very high pressure. And
yeah. And the rules tend to change every time a presidential administration changes, or a governor within the state that you're working in changes, whether you're on the energy exploration side of the business or you're on the energy efficiency side of the business. You're going around like a pinball trying to work with whatever the new regulations and the new rules are that that kind of guide your business.
I see. So a lot of these CEOs, when you go into work with them, so you're talking about the stress that they have from all the regulations and everything going on. Do they a lot of times realize they need the help, or how do you get them to sort of see that? Is it more about, they're giving up their whole life to do this business, or, what are some of the common problems that you see or that they're experiencing? So
most of them don't know that they need what I offer. And I was no different. In fact, so when I sold my business, I was a VP of the company that acquired my company. And a year and a half after the acquisition, I was an employee, and I resigned feeling really depressed and burned out. I had no clue. I did see a therapist, and she gave me some help, but it wasn't until I took life coaching courses and got that certification that I started to understand a little bit more about how these mindset choices that I was making was affecting my psychological well-being. And so most don't know it. They're trying to work on the next deal, the next project. They're desperately searching for high talent employees. All of this stuff is happening, and it's a very competitive environment. So you're competing constantly, and you just don't realize what that does to you until almost you get out of it. And then you feel this big release. And then it's too late, because
or if you have health issues, a lot of people have health issues.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it kind of stops them in their track. So how do you get them to see it, Jeff? How do you, when you're getting your clients or trying to get clients, how do you do that?
So I usually first start with a text dialogue, usually on LinkedIn, because that's where they are. And usually they're on LinkedIn searching for employees. So they're connecting with recruiters and other people. They're not expecting a business coach to talk to them, but I start the conversation based on experience. So they know that I'm experienced in the industry. They'll typically quickly engage with me on some aspect of their business, whether it's sales or engineering. And almost always they're in this roller coaster ride of winning projects and then having to deliver those projects and not really steadily growing their revenue. So there are a lot of common problems that they have. And I kind of keep pressing buttons until I find the one that that fits them. Yeah. And then we start talking, and then I start with what's called a discovery session. And that's where it gets a little bit more intimate. So I will usually sign a non-disclosure agreement, because I am talking about some pretty sensitive topics for them. And they know that this industry is very small, and it is very competitive, and they don't want me sharing sensitive information about their company with somebody else.
Sure, absolutely.
So once we get into the discovery session, I press more buttons, and I'm just trying to get a sense of, how much time do you get to live your life? Is your company growing like you want it to? What's preventing that? And usually I'll get what I call mechanical answers. So they'll usually blame their employees in some way.
Right.
So my salespeople just don't ever perform, or they're not closing deals. And so that's where we start the discussion. And then I talk to them about how the next step for me would be an assessment. So I call it a mechanics and mindset business assessment. Okay. And I go through the 8 facets of their business. And then I also go through what's called an Energy Leadership Index assessment that the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching has developed. And I'm a core energy coach. So I evaluate kind of where their energy levels are. And that's a real eye opener for them a lot of times. They don't. So they finally see how that attitude is sucking the energy right out of them. So
I'm getting tired just talking.
Yeah, I'm sure it's my monotone voice.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I think that's great. I love the tools that you have. Talk about the 8 areas of business. I mean, obviously, I'm a business consultant, but
Mhm.
for my listeners, I just want to kind of dive deep into what you do. So, talk about the 8 areas of business you do.
Yeah. So the 8 areas I look at just, I've always kind of thought, because I'm a mechanical engineer and I've thought of businesses like a machine.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the 8 spokes for me that are really key, and they're in order. So the first is marketing,
Mm-hmm.
getting customers. The second is sales, turning those leads into customers, into
Mm-hmm.
high paying customers. That the third is operations. So that's what you do. It's the things that you do, how well you serve your clients. The fourth is employee. So how are you staffing? How do you plan to grow?
Mm-hmm.
How are you developing your leadership teams? Those kinds of things. And then I go into finance. So how's the money looking? Are you business planning this out? Do you need investment capital? Have you planned for that? Because investors don't like surprises. And so when you predict it and then ask for the money, usually you're going to get it that way.
Mm-hmm.
The next is growth. What is your plan to grow?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of business owners, and this isn't just energy services company, they kind of see themselves as kind of flatlining at some point. They don't want to grow beyond a certain point. And that's so detrimental to their business.
You're not growing, you're going backwards.
Right. You're going one direction or the
You
other.
are. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it's legacy. What do you plan to sell the business at some point? And if you do, are you planning for that? Are you creating a business that's sellable?
Yes.
Or do you just plan to leave it to your employees or just walk away? How are you going to exit in a way that leaves the legacy that you're shooting for? Yes. And then the final thing is yourself. How's your life? Is your business serving you financially, from a time perspective, and everything else?
I love it. So when you end up coaching them, do you find that you're coaching them more on the life coaching side, more with the stress and the balance and all of that? Or do you find that you're coaching them more in the business side? Or is it just really blended? It's almost hard to separate it.
It tends to get blended. I don't have a specific program because each one of my clients is really different. They're struggling with different kinds of issues. And so I try to meet them where they are. The question that I ask, and I'm sure every life coach asks this question, but it's basically, what would you like to work on today? And so each week they're going to bring me something that may be a little bit different, or it may be a repeat of something in the past. In this specific industry, in the energy services space, sales drives everything. So it's usually the problems are surrounding sales and marketing. And it's because the sales cycles are typically 6 months to 2 years. It's hard for it's stressful because if you've been working on an account for 2 years and it doesn't happen, that's a heartbreaker. So they really want to make sure that their selling is working and it's effective. And they're calling on the right kinds of clients. They're developing the right kinds of projects. So that's a big
So you really
deal.
help them with all of those pieces, or do you call in other experts to help with some of those things too? What's sort of your strategy there?
As long as it's within my expertise, I will offer advice and help. But because my agreements are coaching agreements, I only meet with them 1 hour a week. And so I am limited in that capacity. And my desire is not to do a whole lot more than that. So I have had some of my clients ask me to do some engineering for them and do some selling for them. And I've had to decline that. And yet I do have a network of people that I will refer in. Or if there is some business topics that's just not my thing. A lot of the mergers and acquisitions opportunities, I've got some business broker friends that I'll refer them to when it gets into evaluation of their business and those kinds of things.
Right. No, that's excellent. You're a lot like like I am, and the fact that I've built this great network. So if it's something that I don't do,
Right.
I've always got someone in the wings that can help them, which is so great because we're already vetting those people, right? And so we know that the people that we're referring to them are already someone that can be trusted and is going to get the job done. So
Exactly.
no, I love that. Boy, you're doing some great things. So can you give us give everyone an idea of maybe a client that you've really just had great success with, or kind of where they were, what happened? Do you have anyone like that you could talk about without obviously mentioning?
Well, I'm always resistant to talk about too much sensitive stuff, but this person actually has written me a public testimonial for this, so I'm guessing that I could share this.
Okay. You still don't have to give their name, but yeah, that's good.
Yeah. This person focuses particularly in one industry, energy efficiency for data centers. So their company, that's their niche market, and they're, to my knowledge, they're the only ones that have focused specifically in that space. So they're dealing with some very large clients, large telecommunication companies, a lot of large internet companies who want to reduce energy consumption. And these large companies are very complex. And so they do large deals, or sometimes their budgets get cut. And so he was riding this roller coaster ride of revenue for a while. And when I met him, he basically was ready to walk away from the business. So he had some money. He had some cash in the bank from the business, but he was concerned about sales that were coming up in the following year, because it's like, well, what if I don't sell the same projects? I've got this big expense burden. What am I going to do? And so, really it was fear. And for me on the outside, it doesn't seem that bad because it's not my company, but I could tell that it was stressful. I mean, he was looking at an upside of maybe $4 million in profits in the future years, but a near-term loss of $1 million. And that's hard, I think, to do, especially if you're having to invest that money and not know if you're going to get it back. Right. So I did end up coaching some of his salespeople because they did need some work, because they weren't. And I think as a coach, you can get outside of that normal employee-employer relationship and really start saying some things that they start listening to, as opposed to the boss, which I think was him. And so his salespeople are now performing. They've got a good backlog. They've got good sales activity. They did not have that when I was there before, and that's what was causing him a lot of stress. So he actually had me coach them in their sales activity and just how they communicate to their customers on developing new sales. And they're developing not just a backlog, but a lot of other offerings that they weren't offering before because they just didn't think the customer needed them. And so there were a lot of things they didn't have. They did some projects, but they didn't have an ongoing service revenue. So that recurring revenue that they really needed. We
talk about so much.
Yeah, because if you don't have that part of your business, you're constantly having to sell new business.
That's right. It's a constant, you're kind of a product at that point.
Right. Right.
Yes, you have nothing that's sustainable. I always say, you're one sale away from being out of business. There's no business there, really. Yes.
Right. And that's exactly the stress that he was feeling.
Yes.
So he thought, okay, well, if I don't sell these big projects, I'm done. And so why not just quit now? So he was a smart guy, is a smart guy. He just couldn't see a lot of these things because he was in the middle of it.
That's right. I always say when you can't see everything when you're playing the game, right?
Right.
When you're in the middle of the game, you can't see everything that's going on in the whole field.
Right.
And no, that's so true. I love it. That's a great story, and I think it's a good eye opener for people too to realize that it's even for you, even for me. It's hard to always have an objective look at everything and really think about things outside of what we're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
We think we do that, but it takes someone like you or me to go, oh yeah, you didn't even give that a thought, right?
Right.
Because we can see what they can't. So
Right.
no, I think that, that's important for people to really know that we all need somebody
Mm-hmm.
to really help us. And one of the other things that I really love about you working with CEOs is, it's lonely at the top, right?
Right.
So they are in positions where they can't talk about everything. They're in positions where their spouse may not understand what they're going through and doesn't even know how to help them navigate any of that. And they wouldn't listen even if their spouse did know,
Right.
because we don't listen to the people closest to us, right? We think they don't know.
Yeah. And actually, when you're a friend or a spouse or family, there's other stuff happening in that relationship. And so as a coach, you're focused
That's
a little bit on some specific issues, and you don't have the other baggage that's coming with those other relationships.
That's right. And it's important too, because now they have someone that they can really confide in, that has some, you have all of this expertise and knowledge and wisdom and experience and training even, to be able to help them through all of those issues. And I'm just so sold on coaching. I just think when people don't have a coach, they're just really missing opportunities there in their business and even in their life. Because we just can't, there's so much we can't see or do for ourselves that we think we're doing it right, but we're
right.
But we're
well, and I completely agree. I mean, when I had my business, I paid over $500,000 for consultants.
Mm-hmm.
And after I took my life coaching course and thought, well, I could have had a coach weekly for the entire duration of my company for much less than what I was paying these consultants who honestly, I used about 20% of the work that they would do for me.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
So,
wow, that's interesting. No, I think that's a really important point. That's a really valid thing for people to hear. And I love what you're doing. And I really wanted you on here, even though we do a lot of the same things, because I work with businesses as well. And I don't life coach them, but life comes in, right? As I'm coaching them. But we do a lot of the same things in businesses. I work in all those areas you talked about. But I love the fact that you are really specializing in the energy field, because that is not an area I've ever touched. I didn't have a clue. Anything. I mean, I could look at their profit loss statements and I could, I could do all the basics, but I would not have a clue how to navigate that industry. So I found it really fascinating. And I always like to talk to people who are really, I consider experts in their field. They're really specialized and they really have this, honed in expertise and this niche that they work in. And I always find it fascinating to talk to them and let them share and see, what all they're doing. So no, this has been great. Anything, Jeff, that you would like to add or that you would like to tell my listeners? Maybe final thoughts that come to your mind?
A lot of my clients tend to be men, and I don't know if it's just men, but they're analytical men and they're very competitive. And again, this was exactly who I was too. So I'm not condemning them for being men or being analytical, but I think people who are very technical, very smart mentally, I think they're the most, I think, in danger of running into some of these traps that I've seen a lot of CEOs run into where, and you don't even know, because again, the logical side of your brain doesn't understand what's actually happening.
Right.
And so my main caution would be, if you're an analytical person who is really good financially, good with the mechanics of your business. Be careful about kind of the blind side of some of the mindset stuff that's probably churning around and spinning in you around, because that's where I think a lot of those folks tend to get tripped up. And they start this cycle of thinking that they don't even know exists, just like you said. So the coach can actually pull them out of that, see things from a bigger perspective, and make the kind of progress towards success that they're really hoping for.
Oh, so I think that's excellent. That's a really, really excellent thing to bring up, because a lot of times also, this is going to sound bad, but they're the same people that a lot of times they don't even realize their ego is, it's one thing to not be exposed and not even realize that someone like you exists, right? A lot of people may not even realize there's a Jeff Schuster out there that can, help them navigate all of these things. But if you do know, and you don't do something about it, then to me, that's just letting your ego get in the way, which it's unfortunate, but we all kind of in some way, shape, or form have done that in our life, right? I mean, I remember even owning businesses, and when I would have to hire somebody to sort of replace me in that particular role, it was hard to let go of that. I talk about that all the time. It's hard to let go of that. You think you're the best. You think nobody can do it like you. And that's all ego. We just, we just let that get in the way, and we stop ourselves from reaching really full potential.
And I think the ego it kind of helps you in some ways, because it does, you're skeptical of a lot of coaches and consultants because there are some duds out there.
Well, we are.
Right.
We see, I talk about this all the time. We see the industry.
Right. So you have your guard up, and so that's okay. But then at some point, you have to at least check it out or experiment with it to see if something's going to work. Because I'll tell you what, had I hired a coach, I probably would have still been in the industry, never experienced the kind of burnout that I experienced, although I'm where I'm supposed to be, because I love helping others avoid some of those pitfalls.
Sure. Yeah, it's all those experiences that you can now help others with. It's interesting that you say that, because for a lot of years when I was building several businesses, I did not even know coaches existed. And a training program was you have to order it through the mail, right? They'd come to you, or you had to go to a conference, which there weren't even a lot of those.
Right.
And so when I hired my first coach, it was actually in my fifth business. And when it was such a game changer for me. It's actually why I am a coach. So I'm very much the opposite. I sold my business because I knew that this was the direction I wanted to go. And I was so excited to take 30 years of experience, pour it into other people. But when I hired that first coach, sometimes people don't really realize what that person can do for you. Like she was a great marketer, but I don't think she was really good at marketing herself, because I really just took a chance on her. I had no idea what she could do for me, but I knew I needed some help in that business. It was a fairly new business, and I hired her, and it was just such a game changer.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really my ego in that case. I just didn't know they existed. So I think always have a conversation with someone, first of all, because I think you can, when you really ask questions, and really a good conversation, they're going to ask you enough questions that you're going to go, well, I think this person kind of knows what they're doing. Right.
And it's more of how much they can pull out of you that you didn't even realize you were capable of.
Thinking, yes, right. That whole exposure thing. So, no, I love it. This has been great conversation. I've enjoyed having you on my show.
I've enjoyed being here.
And I think you shared a lot of great wisdom. And for anyone, really, he can really help any, I'm sure, CEOs and or their teams. If you need help with your team, your sales team or whatever, obviously he's got all of that expertise and experience, but especially if you're in the energy field or business, or it sounds like even if you deal with a lot of government things, and those are also areas that you have an expertise. That's not something I have an expertise in. So
anybody. Well, so in the energy services space, those folks call on a lot of public sector clients. So if you're calling on school boards or city councils or county commissioners or state government, even federal government, I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't advertise that, but I know a lot of the systems and processes to win business in those spaces.
But see, that's really really valuable expertise, because again, if I were going in to coach someone, that would not be an area I could help them in. I'd have to find someone like you.
There you go.
And help me with that. Yeah. So I mean, I think it is, that's really, really incredible experience that could benefit a lot of companies out there that are working with those types of services. So I love it. I loved having you on here. Thank you so much for being here. And we will put all of his links and everything in the show notes so you can reach out to Jeff. He's also very active on LinkedIn, which is how I met him. And you reach out to him on LinkedIn, connect with him. He is so genuine and sincere, and he's so personable. It was not hard to get into a conversation with him, even as someone where we didn't know each other at all. So he's very approachable. So reach out to him. And if he can help you in your business or in helping you really avoid, being stressed out, and if you're thinking you want to sell or any of those things, it sounds like he's got all of the expertise that you need to help you navigate those situations. So again, thanks, Jeff. And until next time, everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and God bless you. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.